Hello, English 110 class. This is Michelle Long, your instructor, and today we're going to be reviewing Part 4, the basic sentence. And our focus today in this podcast is going to be on Chapter 17, Nouns and Pronouns. In discussing the 8 parts of speech, what we're going to be reviewing of the 8 parts of speech are nouns and pronouns. We're going to be talking next about verbs, subject and verbs. Adjectives and adverbs we're not really going to review in this course, but they are in the book, and I do recommend that you review what an adjective and adverb is and just get a little bit of background of both of them. We are going to be reviewing prepositions in this week, and conjunctions we're going to be talking about later on when we talk about compound and complex sentences, and interjections. These are your 8 parts of speech, and in this particular chapter, we're going to be reviewing the first 2 of them. Here is a website that I found to be very helpful for students that are working on exercises, and some of the podcasts and the videos in my foundations and presentation information is not enough. Sometimes you do have to go out and kind of do a little bit of research on your own, which is fine. But this web link is really helpful because it gives all of the grammar information, and not only that, but it gives examples too. So out of the many different websites that I researched, I found this website to be the best one. Nouns. Okay, so nouns. Noun can be a person, place, it can be a thing, activity, it can be a quality, it can be an idea. In your book, as I'm giving the presentation, I'll also be following along in your book. So depending on what version you have of the book, I'm going to be going over the 4th edition. And I'll be starting in chapter 17, but you can see that there are also some more information on nouns on page 324. But just some examples of nouns. We have hospital, procedure, nurse, life, love, mostly all the words. Most of the words that you state in a time period or in a given day are mostly. It can be common, it can be proper. A common noun is general noun that's not capitalized unless it begins a sentence. Then it would become a proper noun. A proper noun is a specific name of something, and it is capitalized. Some differences here of what a common noun may be and what a proper noun may be. A common noun would be something like, medicine or doctor, tablet, city. A proper noun is anything that is really capitalized. So your name, my name, Mrs. Long, your religion, a state, a city, those are all considered. The difference between a singular noun and a plural noun is most of the time, if not all of the time, plural nouns end with an S. Just some basic rules for forming plurals are presented in the chart, and the chart is in the book. So if you were to look at page 325 in the book, kind of gives you just an example of the difference between some rules, and this does not apply to all nouns, but just some rules for forming plurals, and I gave the top 4 most popularly used examples. So as an example, patient, if you're going to pluralize that, if there's more than one patient in a day, you would just put an S. Same with doctor. But if you have a noun that ends with an S or an X, you would just put an ES at the end of that. If you have something that ends with a Y, like an EY or an AY, an OY, you would just formulate a plural by putting an S at the end. When a word is ended with a Y, but there's no vowel before the Y, then what you would do is you remove that Y and then you change it to an I, and then you add an ES at the end. Some other rules for forming plurals. So we have some irregular forms. If you have a child, you would not say childs, you would say children. And if you have woman or a man, you would not say woman's or man's, you say men or women. If you have a word that ends with an F, you want to drop the F and you want to add a V, and then you want to add an ES at the end. As an example, thief, you want to add a VES in replacement of the F. Leaves is plural for leaf, and you would just drop the F, add a VES, same with grief. Another example is mother-in-law. What you want to do is you want to add the S to the main part of the word. Now the main part of the word happens to be mother. It is actually not in or law. The main part of the word is mother, so what you would do is you would pluralize mother and make it mothers-in-law. Some people have more than one mother-in-law, so that would make mothers-in-law the plural version. For words ending in O, as an example, you would just add an ES, and in some other cases, you would just add an S. It depends on the word. Pronouns: I, we, you. He, she, it, they, him, her, them. Just some examples of pronouns. Basically what a pronoun does is it stands in place of a noun. So as an example, if you were to say, Mrs. Long is my instructor for this term. Mrs. Long is my instructor for the English skills for college success class. Mrs. Long is my instructor until June. You wouldn't continue to keep saying that because you would just sound redundant. So what you would do is you would put something in place of my name so it sounds and it reads better. If you were to write it, it would read much better than constantly repeating my name. So you would say, Mrs. Long is my instructor. She will be teaching this English 110 this term. She will be teaching until June. So it sounds much better than constantly repeating my name. The antecedent is the noun to which the pronoun refers. So when you say Mrs. Long is going to be my instructor for this term, she will be my instructor for English 110. She is the pronoun and is referring to me. I am the antecedent. Mrs. Long is the antecedent. Every pronoun should refer clearly to one antecedent. And when I say these two sentences, or I can actually put them together as one sentence, then it does refer, because my name is Mrs. Long and my gender is female, therefore you would put a female pronoun in there, so it does refer clearly. As an example, the sentence, a modern superhero is a symbol of the culture from which he comes. Superhero is the antecedent of the pronoun he, and the pronoun he refers to antecedent superhero. Back in the day, it was known to place a pronoun he for a general word such as that, such as superhero, and it was fine, and it still is okay. But if you don't feel comfortable putting just he, because a superhero, of course, could be a woman, you can say he or she, and that's perfectly fine also. But he would be correct also. The relationship between a pronoun and its antecedent has to be obvious. It has to be clear. And if there are faulty pronoun agreements, and what it will do is it will, of course, challenge your credibility, but it will alert maybe some judgment if you're sending an email and that happens. I know I've been guilty of that. In fact, I had to call the person I sent the email to on the phone and apologize for my faulty agreement in my sentence because I'm an English teacher and I should know better. So I have done that once, just once, but I have done it, and I do want to make sure that I followed up to clear my credibility. So just make sure that when you are sending, important emails, official emails, or business memos, things of that nature, you want to make sure and read and reread what you're sending to make sure there is no grammatical issues. You can look at the guidelines agreement as well. Pronouns and its antecedent again must agree, and they can agree with each other in one of three ways: person, gender, number. I have a homework assignment that I'm going to be giving you that you're going to be asked to look at a sentence and change the sentence to make sure that there is no faulty agreement between the pronoun and the antecedent. But not only that, you have to determine whether or not it is in person, in gender, or in number. So we're going to go over them now. Person. The position from which something is considered. In most cases, when you speak, you normally do speak in first person if you're talking about yourself. Second person is when you're talking about someone else. Maybe somebody else is not there in the conversation, so you. So maybe you're speaking about someone and you're speaking about them in the second person. Third person is he, she, or it, so it's someone else besides you and the person that you're talking to, someone else. Third person is usually the person when you are creating research assignments and things of that nature. Your instructor will tell you, do not write in first person ever. You never want to see I in a sentence when you're writing official and formal writing. So as an example, in an essay, research assignment, you normally want to write it in third person. Okay, so we have the person here, first, second, and third, and then I have some examples of what you might see as first, second, or third. Singular, plural. If you speak in first person, you're talking about I, but sometimes you might have to say me. If you're speaking in more than one person, so let's say you and a group went somewhere, you would say we or you would say our, if it's more than one person that you're referring to in first person. Second person is always you. You never say use, you never put an S at the end of the plural of the word you, although you do for most words, you put an S at the end, but you do not for you. Second for singular and plural is always you. Third is he, she, it. One through the singular third person that you normally see, and those are the words that you're going to be using for any type of formal writing, research assignments again, or if it's more than one person, they. The first person is usually in the writer, and it's usually the speaker. The person that's actually speaking would probably be the one to talk in or write in first person. They would say, I did this, or they would write something like, if they're writing a reflection piece, they could say I in that piece. A singular again is I, me, and then plural is we. Second is always you, no matter what. And you are the one being written to, you. You are the one being spoken to, you. And it also can remain unstated. So in some sentences, you do not have to have the word you. It's automatically assumed that that is the subject and that's who you're referring to as you. The one that's being written about, the one that's being spoken of. He went to the store. She drove to the shore. They went to the concert. So singular or plural depends on the amount of people that you're. Faulty pronoun agreement due to shift in person. Okay, so remember when we talked about person. The person of the pronoun differs from the person of the antecedent. That is called a faulty shift in person. That is called a faulty shift in person. So if you were to look at, I'm looking in your book here to see what a good page is, page 332, you can see that there is a chart that gives you the information about the person, whether it's first person, second person, or third person. What I'm going to be doing is giving you some examples of sentences that are written incorrectly, and we have to determine the person, and then also determine how to write the sentence correctly. As an example, we have an illogical shift in person. So as soon as you hear a logical shift in person, you want to make sure and know what person means. What does person mean? Just memorize first, second, third. As an example, if you wrote something in, let's say, in a writing sample that you needed to submit, he can learn to dance despite your age. When we opened up this sentence, we opened it up with the word he, and he is in third person. It's a masculine, singular, third person. When you continue with your sentence, you want to stay in that same person. You don't want to start your sentence in one person and then end it in another, which is what we did in this sentence. We ended the sentence with your. Your happens to be second person. Anything that has you or your in it, you know, is second person. So here we have a sentence that is, part of it is in third person, and then the second part is in second. How we would change that is we can make the sentence all third person, or we can make the sentence all second. So as we rewrite this correctly, we can say, he can learn to dance despite his age. So we know we start it in third person, now we're ending it in third person. It's not written on the slide, but if you were to also correct the sentence, you could maintain second person throughout your entire sentence and it would still be correct. So you can also say, you can learn to dance despite your age, and that's perfectly fine. Okay, so a person's thoughts lead to your actions. So we don't really have an actual pronoun here, a person's, but it is what is called an antecedent, and the antecedent refers to the pronoun in the sentence. A person's thoughts lead to your actions. So a persons is the antecedent that has to relate to the pronoun in the sentence. So the pronoun in the sentence happens to be your. Well, we know a person can be he, she, not it, because it is not a person, but a person can be he and she. That automatically makes it third person. So we start the sentence out with a third person antecedent. We then finish the sentence with a second person pronoun, your. So this is what you would call a faulty pronoun agreement. How we could correct this is one of two ways. We could keep it in third person, and that's fine. We could say a person's thoughts lead to her actions. We could also say his or his or her. Because a person, remember, is he or she, and that is third person. And then her is also third person. So we can say a person's thoughts lead to his actions, or we could say a person's thoughts leads to her actions, or we could actually combine them, because when you put or between his and her, it's actually, you're still singular, because it's one or the other. If you said his and her, then we would be talking about plural. We don't want to be talking about plural right in this particular sentence because our antecedent is singular. So how we would say a person's thoughts leads to his or her actions. If you want it to going back to what it was, your, I think, if you wanted to keep it at second person, we could also say your thoughts lead to your actions, to keep it in all second person, which is fine. The behaviors we choose are influenced by your attitude about the behavior. All right, so here we're starting out in first person because I, me, we, all of those pronouns are in first person, anything that has to do with I. We is first person, so let's go ahead and change your to first person. And if we say the behaviors we choose and change it, you can change it from his or her. But it looks like in this case what they're doing is they're changing it to second person antecedent. So we'll do that. The behaviors you choose are influenced by your attitude about the behavior. So we are starting in second person, we're ending in second person, we are keeping that agreement non-faulty, and it's correct. You can also, instead of a person, which we're going to do next, we're going to do number, but to summarize the illogical shift in person, the pronouns have to agree in person. If not, it is grammatically incorrect and you will get it wrong. It kind of breaks the logical flow of the ideas in your writing. So you want to use the same paraphrasing throughout your paragraph and your sentence. Number. Okay. Pretty simple. It's either singular or it's plural. It's one or the other. We don't have to memorize all these different pronouns or anything. Numbers just is a singular, is a plural. Well, if it's singular, then let's keep it singular. We want to make sure they match. If we're starting out plural, we want to make sure that our antecedent matches. So singular pronouns refer to singular nouns. Plural pronouns refer to plural nouns. Make sure there is no unnecessary shift in number, because again, it will break that logical flow and it will be. So guidelines for clear pronoun agreement. Singular pronouns, again, refer to singular nouns. Plural pronouns refer to plural nouns. So there are 3 points of view, and in this, it looks like in this table, there's a little bit more information in here than the table that gives you in the book. Well, just a little bit more. And it looks like there are some indefinite pronouns in here as well, which we're going to talk about later on. But you can see all the different pronouns and what person they belong to. So third person encompasses all male type of pronouns, all female type of pronouns, not only male and female, but also neutral its. And sometimes you will see everyone, one, itself, things like that. They're all considered third person. Themselves, theirs, them, they, they're all considered third person. So probably the easiest person to remember is second, because it always has something to do with you. First person always has something to do with me or I. Everything else is third. Okay, so here we have number. We have number. And again, number is either is it singular, is it plural? Well, we start out with a singular noun. Hip-hop is a form of urban youth culture. They include rap music, graffiti, and break dancing. Well, if hip-hop was plural, they would be perfectly fine. But they is a plural third-person pronoun, and it does not match the noun hip-hop. So we're going to have to make some changes to the sentence to make sure that it's correct. We're not going to make a change in the singular noun. What we are going to do is we're going to change our pronoun. And it's highlighted in red so it stands out and you can take a look at it. Hip-hop is a form of urban youth culture. It, and if you remember back when we were talking about person, hip-hop is basically third person. We want to bring in a third person singular pronoun that matches hip-hop. So we're going to bring in it. We're going to remove they. We're going to bring in it. It includes rap music, graffiti, and breakdancing. So we're talking about a whole new set of ideas after it. So anything that goes after it doesn't really have anything to do with the pronoun and the noun that it refers to or the antecedent. We're just really focusing on the pronoun. Gender is self-explanatory. You know what gender is. It's either female. The pronoun is a different gender than the gender of the antecedent. When that happens, you have a faulty pronoun agreement due to shift in gender. Most of the times, it has to do with masculine pronouns referring to antecedents that could either apply to men or women. Or you have a female or a feminine pronoun that could also do the same thing. As an example, if you wrote this sentence on a test, it would be wrong, obviously, because Susan expands his thoughts through reading. Susan is naturally a female name. I mean, it could be a masculine name. I myself have never heard of a man whose name is Susan, but Susan is generally a female name. So when you have a name that's generally a female name, you want to make sure and attach a feminine antecedent to that. So you would change that from his, because his, to her. So it sounds much better when you say Susan expands her thoughts through reading. So gender is probably the easiest faulty agreement to fix because it's the most logical. The other two, you have to kind of put a little bit more thought into how you're going to change around your sentence to make sure that there's no faulty agreement. But gender is pretty self. So basically, feminine pronouns refer to feminine nouns. Masculine nouns refer to masculine nouns. One of the things I did not mention is gender neutral plural or singular pronouns, and they actually can apply to men or women, gender neutral. Pronoun choice establishes consistent use of the person of pronouns. So just make sure that you keep that in the back of your head when you are writing, because this is a most commonly used or seen error that I see in students in writing. So that's why I wanted to really go over this, is the faulty pronoun agreement. Okay, so just to reinforce what we just learned, one more example to give you, and we're looking at a singular antecedent, which is individual. It definitely does not match there because there's plural. It doesn't sound right. It's written incorrectly. It just doesn't read well. So what you would do is you could either change individual to be plural to match there, or you can match there to be singular to match the antecedent individual. So let's go to the next slide. We could change that to an individual is able to change his or her attitudes. And this is the thing that we were talking about 2 slides ago when we were talking about gender neutral, because it can be either woman or man. An individual can be a woman, individual could be a man. And again, when you put or between the 2 words, it makes it singular. That matches individual as being singular as well. Indefinite pronouns, these kind of get thrown into it not to confuse you, because you would think that these would be plural. But they're actually singular. As an example, everything, everyone, anybody, everybody, you would think these indefinite pronouns would be plural. But actually, when you write them in the sentence, you would need a singular verb. They are singular. These indefinite pronouns are singular. Now, if you were to look at one, none, no one, anyone, either, each, those, of course, do stand out as singular. You don't have to give it a second thought because you know they're singular. It's just, I just need you to memorize the ones that are, they do look plural, as not to confuse you in a sentence. Each of the workers has a concern. So you have a singular indefinite pronoun, which is each. You want to make sure that that matches your verb. Your verb is has. If you were to say all of the workers, you would then say have, and that would be plural. But because each is a singular indefinite pronoun, you want to have a singular verb. Some plural indefinite pronouns, some, That's very popular. All, both, few, many, several, any, more. These are all plural. So when you have a plural indefinite pronoun, you want to have a plural verb. That is the end. Okay, well, thank you very much for your time, and go ahead and look on Moodle. We are currently in week 2, and you have a paper assignment. You have assignment in My Foundation, so you're going to be getting yourself trained on My Foundation, and the instructions are attached. You also have the assignments that are in your book. So the assignments that are in your book, they can either be done in your book if you purchase your book and your book is yours, and you can do a scan, or you can do the scan app on your phone, or take a picture of it and send it to my email or through submissions. The other way, if you're renting or buying the book used and plan to return it, you can write it on a separate piece of paper, just the questions and then of course the answer, and you can either save it in Word and send it to me through email or send it through submissions. Those are the ways that you can submit your homework to me. If you have any questions, my email address is on the syllabus. It's mlong@pit.edu. I would be very happy to hear from you if you have any questions. And thank you for your time, and have a nice day.